天天在一起，天天用心听，听见台北的声音。FM 93.1，幸福永远属于你。
公民总主笔，
方恩格时间。
谁当家？
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 你当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？我当家。你当家？我当家。到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. I'm your host, Ross Darrell Feingold. Today, our very special guest is Professor Louisa Chang, the newly elected president of a new organization in Taipei called the Asociación Taiwanesa de Hispanistas. And Professor, I'm sure I said it wrong, so can you please correct my Spanish? How do you pronounce it?
In Spanish?
Yes.
Asociación Taiwanesa de Hispanistas. In English, might be Taiwan Association of Hispanists.
Which is an organization to help or bring together Spanish language educators. Is that correct?
Yes, mainly the members are professors from different department of Spanish in Taiwan, and some teachers from high school, and also lovers, passionate. They love Spanish, and so far we have 85 members.
Okay, terrific. So we'll talk more about that a little later in the show, but let's first learn a little bit about you. Where in Taiwan did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Taichung City, but before it was Taichung County. I'm from a rural village. My parents were farmers. You know, at that time it's harsh.
So when you were a child in rural Taichung, what did you want to be? Because I'm going to guess at the time you weren't dreaming about being a Spanish language professor, let alone one of Taiwan's most prominent Spanish language professors. So when you were a child, what did you want to be?
Actually, you know, for most family, I mean agricultural family, the best way for their children is to study normal school. So my parents would like me to study in normal school. You know, it's at public expenses, I mean government funding. And then after 5 years of education, the government guarantee you a job. But to be teacher for elementary school, I dare not say to be educator, but you know, the teacher is always the first role model for every student that want to be. So I did want to be a teacher, but without thinking about I would be a professor of Spanish.
Now looking back at that time when you were a child, is there something that you look back on and you could say now it actually was very helpful for learning Spanish a little later in life when you went to university and when you went for your PhD in Spain? But when you were a child, what might have been helpful to learning a foreign language or Spanish specifically?
Well, absolutely not. You know, during my time, it might be 40 years ago, nobody had the idea to study a second foreign language. I would like to say maybe at that time English was important because we started to learn in junior high school. But I don't think, like every student like me, we didn't have the mind to think about a second foreign language. English might be because, you know, English was a killer together with mathematics for all students who want to study in the university. That's one my childhood, and I think many students of my generation would be the same.
And you eventually went to Furen University, a great university here in northern Taiwan, and you majored in Spanish. How did you wind up being a Spanish major?
Actually, I think my life is full of accident. You are quite young. Maybe you don't know that during my time, there were only 4 groups for us to choose: science and technology, medicine and agriculture, then law school and business. And I belong to the liberal arts. So what I can choose among language, history, philosophy, and during the liberal arts, you know, the foreign language will always be the first choice. So I just list my wishes, starting from Department of English. But accidentally, you know, my score was on the borderline of Department of Spanish, and I decided to study it. Otherwise, you should take the exam next year. So again, it's very harsh for students. So But personally, I'm interested in language learning. So after I entered in Foreign Catholic University, actually it was completely different. I appreciate this opportunity to give me maybe a renaissance, another life. So even it was an accident, but I appreciate maybe it was a turning point of my life.
Were there specific professors in the Spanish language department or the foreign language department at Furen who really inspired what became, a lifelong interest and profession for you? Were there certain professors, or be honest, it was just your own hard work?
Actually, well, I would like to take this opportunity because I would like to say October 12th was the National Day of Spain. Maybe I can take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all my teachers in Foreign Catholic University because they are contributors of who I am today. Actually, at that time, most of the teachers were priests and sisters from Catholic religious order, and I love them. I appreciate their generosity, their dedication. They spend their whole life in Taiwan without any reward, I'd like to say, and dedicate their whole life. So maybe especially, I would like to say some professor, but unfortunately, some of them passed by. One is the literature professor Manuel Bayo, Baian Mao. He spent 20 years in Foreign Catholic University, and now the retired professor Lei Mengdu 老师 Jose Ramon Arbalez continue teaching and dedicating his life in Taiwan. And then another many sister I would like to mention. 田松韵老师、梅文彬老师, all of them, until today, they still contribute their life to service and to teaching. So I think Foreign Catholic University, I would like to say at that time, or from the point of view of today, was the most internationalized university. So my time in Furen was fantastic.
You just mentioned professor of Spanish literature. From the time you began your first Spanish class, your first lesson as a new student at Furen, until you could read a book of Spanish literature, how long did that take?
Wow, a lot of time. Actually, I always say that I'm not against that student to study the translation because until I am, I think, the third year or the junior, the senior, I can study to read.
You can read the original.
Original textbook. But when we were in the sophomore, professor began to teach the text fragment in Spanish, and we can follow the professors. But I think it would be the master program, the graduate school, we can completely study writing in Spanish. But in so short time, imagine that we dedicate so many years in learning English. Then after 4 years, we should write a thesis in Spanish. And then we should communicate with friends, with the teacher in Spanish. So I think it's quite effective, efficient teaching and research. And sometimes we also take English translation to help us. So I think it's not the problem to read the Spanish in original text, but to depend on your efforts. And we can take Chinese translation, English, since we started to learn English first. So, and it depends on the efforts of everyone. So that's my process of learning.
Yeah, you mentioned you had some exposure, as many elementary or high school students in Taiwan do, to English. Yeah. When you got to university and began your Spanish studies, did you also still take English language class at the university level? Or once you got to university, you never took another English class again?
No, there were 2 years, a kind of compulsory. But after that, I must admit that no more English. Actually, after I decided to dedicate myself to Spanish studies, it never occurred to me that I would use English again in my academic career. So most of the students should study, we call it the 大一英文, 大二英文, 2 years of compulsory English, then completely free for every student to choose the courses they want to do. So after 2 years of English, actually, I didn't. And I think most of us who majored the second foreign language, we didn't have much time to do English studies, except those who wanted to give up their expertise. I mean, actually many students of our department, or German or French or Japanese, they decide to give up their language and then concentrated to the English studies. Yeah, most of the students of my time, more than half. Yeah.
Later on, you went to Madrid for a PhD at a very fine university, and I'm also going to mispronounce its name as well. So why don't you tell us the name of the university you went to in Madrid for your PhD?
Well, that was another accident because actually I was a scholar. I got a scholarship offered by the government. And since it was announced suddenly, because again, we never known that would be a scholarship for students to get PhD in Madrid, in Spain. You know, the Ministry of Education just put literature in Madrid. And I remember when we saw the announcement, it was May, but the exam was July, so only 2 months. But actually, you can prepare every year. But since nobody will think that it will happen to Spanish, so most of my classmates, we decide to prepare, and our professor help us to prepare. And there's only one quota for one person, and I got the scholarship. I passed the exam, and that was my second year of the master, and I was doing my thesis. So 1 year later, I went to Complutense University, but at that time, since my professor told me that in Taiwan, in the department, we have professors major in Spanish literature. Actually, most of the teachers are from Spain. I mean, the religious order in other departments as well. So they told me that if you want to continue literature study, maybe you could and you should choose Latin American literature. So I decided to study Latin American literature that we didn't have experts in Taiwan. And at that time, I think Complutense, the biggest one, the best one. And after the recommendation of my teacher, I decided to study the Latin American literature in Madrid.
And how many years did you take to obtain your PhD?
From 1988 to 1994, January, 5 years and a half.
Wow, it sounds like a very intense period of study. What was your thesis?
My thesis was focused on the slavery and abolitionism of Cuban novel in the 19th century. It's very interesting. But at that time, our professors, my mentor in Madrid, told me that he would like encouraging me to do important topic, but less studies. And personally, I am very sympathetic with the marginalized people, just like my situation as professor of Spanish. Sometimes I think Spanish in Taiwan suffer a little bit of depreciation and prejudice.
Well, as an English speaker, I'm sympathetic to you, but it's also good for me that I can communicate in English with a lot of people in Taiwan.
But nowadays, I think people are more open, more internationalized. They accept, they know that in addition to English, I want to say except, in addition to English, actually there are many languages, very valuable and a rich culture. So I appreciate that I have such an opportunity to study Latin American literature, Latin American culture in Spain, and then to know the viewpoint of Spaniards, how they see or how they appreciate the Latin American literature. So I choose the topic, the Cuban, and better to say anti-slavery novel, to see the black people during the colonial time.
Now, as part of your PhD studies and writing your thesis, did you have to travel to Latin America to do research, or you did it all in Spain?
Actually, I spent 6 months in the United States. At that time, when the library and the information started to use computer search, my fiancé, my husband now, told me, come to here. You can get any material reference quite easily. So I got a permission from Madrid to Vanderbilt University. And I saw a lot of reference book. There wasn't any problem, including I got a microfilm novel from Berkeley University, and I could finish my thesis, because my thesis talked about 11 novels. Well, quite... very hard work. And unfortunately, I haven't been in Cuba, but I think for such topic, there are more, at that time, more experts, specialists focusing on this topic in the United States, in Spain, than Cuba. But I always hope that someday I could go there to see. But Latin America, yes, later I went to, I think so far, not too many, 7 countries: Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Chile, Argentina, Guatemala, El Salvador, and 4 countries, thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs 10 years ago, they launched a youth ambassador. So I took students from National Taiwan University to visit for 4 years, consecutive years, to visit 4 countries.
Oh, so you still have many more to go to in Latin America. Did you consider remaining in Europe or going to the United States to join the faculty of a university instead of coming back to Taiwan?
Well, just I mentioned before, I am scholar.
So you had no choice. You had to come back.
I had no alternative, but I did have the idea to say in the United States, not in Spain, nor went to Latin America, because. My husband studied in Vanderbilt University. There was a small group, Vanderbilt University. They say it's a South Harvard. And a lot of Taiwanese students, actually, I think half of them decided to stay, 40 years ago or 30 years ago. At the time, I thought, I did have the idea, if I can stay in the United States, I could teach Spanish. Because if I went to Spain, I stayed in Spain or went to Latin America, maybe they will ask me to teach Chinese. That's happened to many Taiwanese professors in the United States as well. So I asked my fiancé at that time, do you want to pay? Because if I decide to stay outside.
You have to break the bond
I
with
must
the government.
pay in turn. A huge money. I couldn't afford it. But my husband, I will get married with you, but I won't pay like money for you.
Well, I hope my girlfriend is listening to that.
Just joking. He also decided to come back because he finished his PhD.
Now you also have a relationship with an organization in Spain called the Royal Spanish Academy. Can you explain what that is?
Well, I think it's a supreme honor, because actually, according to the status of Royal Spanish Academy, since 19th century, they pay tribute to those who contribute their research, publication, translation, everything. In terms of Spanish language, language and literature. Official member, because there are only 46 for Spaniard. Others will be we say that correspondent. But since 2009, they didn't mention anyone. So that was the new director of the Royal Spanish Academy and literature experts. He decided to nominate the new. And it was 2016. I remember on April 21st, there were 17 members nominated and elected. And that was also the first time that there were academicians from Chinese community, because there were 3, 2 from China, and I am the only one from Taiwan. And I appreciate, because among the 17, there were only 5 women.
Wow.
And from non-Spanish speaking countries, universities.
Well, it sounds like an extraordinary honor. Did you get to go to Madrid and meet the king?
Yes. Well, since it's a Royal Spanish Academy, I would like to say actually it's a kind of honor. They didn't require us or ask us to do anything, but we are doing that every day. They pay tribute to our contribution because we are working with the Spanish language and the Spanish culture. And the king, since the king, the Royal Spanish Academy belong to the king, and the king, sometimes we can be received by the king or the queen. At least so far, I have met with the king 4 times, and the queen 2 times.
Wow!
So in the future, I will have more opportunity because we can assist any kind of event except 2. One is to vote. The official member, we cannot. The correspondent member cannot vote. And another, when the Royal Spanish Academy is discussing the financial issues, then we cannot participate. Otherwise, every time when I go to Spain, I can attend the plenary session and to give suggestions, including. So that's a very good opportunity for me to enhance the influence, or maybe to participate or do some interaction with Taiwan and many other countries or universities.
I'm just going to have to ask you a sensitive question, and then we'll take a short break.
Okay.
When you participate in the Royal Spanish Academy activities, do they refer to you as from Taiwan or Chinese Taipei?
Well, since this is academic academy, I always very sensitive with this, and I was aware of one time they try to avoid, but fortunately they always say, at least in the homepage of the Royal Spanish Academy, they put Louisa Chen, Taiwan. That's and I remember, yes, you are very sensitive. In the year 2016. They did protest a while, but the director is open. He said, "This is nothing to do with the politics, please." And we share the same culture. Just it's a kind of a contribution, recognition of their contribution in Spanish language and literature. So, and actually, I have very good friendship with the scholar from China. We always collaborate very well. And, sometimes, yes, maybe if they try to avoid, I try to be absent. And if I am present, I try to say I am from Taiwan. And now I think in Spain, they are also very open and internationalized. They would like to say this is nothing to do with the politics. Just let the politician outside. Now we are talking about our common language. We share the same heritage. So I don't think I have such kind of problem. And if someday, I will see to balance, I don't want to destroy anything. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station.
如有长照服务需求、长照特别扣除额问题，请拨打1966长照专线，5分钟内通话免付费。一通电话让长期照顾管理专员协助申请长期照顾服务及解答长期照顾特别扣除额相关问题。 以上内容由台北市政府卫生局提供。
爸爸应酬不开车，黄色嘟嘟安全多，应酬喝酒不过量，安全回家最上道。爸爸要平安回家哦。
喝酒不开车，开车不喝酒哦。让我们一起尊重生命，拥抱亲情。
亲爱的朋友，您还在吸烟吗？快拿着健保卡到戒烟门诊，或拨打戒烟专线0800636363。提醒您，最近兴起的电子烟、加热烟，因为没有浓浓的烟臭味，就被认为无害。其实已经证实，新兴烟品都有二手烟及三手烟的危害，甚至还有爆炸的风险。我是义工蔡依林，所有烟品都 get out。我拒烟，我骄傲。
教育部提醒大家，开学防疫不松懈，请家长每日量孩子体温，如有发烧请就医，并在家休息。上课时要全程佩戴口罩，采固定座位、固定成员。使用空调时保持通风良好。用餐时采个人套餐，使用隔板或维持社交距离，不并桌、不交谈。校园防疫不松懈，安心学习有保障。以上广告由教育部提供。
谁当家？
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 你当家？
谁当家？谁当家？
谁当家？
谁当家？我当家。你当家？我当家。
我当家。
到底谁当家？你来当家。
Welcome back to Residence Messenger. Our guest today is Professor Louisa Chang of the Association Taiwanesa de Hispanista. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Professor. Just before the break, you were talking about your status as a correspondent member of the Royal Spanish Academy, sometimes dealing with colleagues around the world, including in China. On the several universities where you've worked here in Taiwan, you've also had a role in international affairs. And of course, nowadays, Taiwan is getting more international exposure, and universities are doing more with universities outside Taiwan. Share with us a little bit about some of your experiences being an administrator of these kinds of things in universities here in Taiwan.
Well, will you give me 1,001 nights?
No, I can only give you a few minutes. I myself I've taught at universities in Taipei, both to local students as well as foreign students. And my own experience with this is there's a lot of good intentions, but there's also a lot of bureaucracy.
Well, to sum up, actually, I appreciate, again, that was another accident, but I appreciate especially the former president of National Taiwan University. He's Dr. Yang Panchi 校长. When he was elected as the president of National Taiwan University, he called me to be the vice president for international affairs. I was scared because first of all, for international affairs, in other universities, they always ask professor from the strong field. I mean, computer science, medicine, or electrical engineering. I mean, the strong field or the top expertise. But he said that you can take charge in international affairs. Later, you have a good office. I mean, I appreciate my staff. Office of International Affairs, they are quite professional. And I accepted this challenge. And I think it's another big opportunity for me to go outside from my own expertise, because I could get into with many universities, top universities or universities that you never know, and we must participate many in higher education fair. And I appreciate because I got the opportunity to work with, for example, Harvard University, Berkeley University, many top universities of the United States, as well as European universities. And if you want me to say some spotlight, I would like to say, starting from my time, my position, we built a kind of strategic partnership to work with certain top university intensively. For example, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Tokyo University, Kyoto University, in every continent, I mean in every region, in China with Beijing University, Sydney University, Hamburg University, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to work with other universities. That's a kind of strategic partnership. Then we built many collaboration with European Union in name of Erasmus Plus, That's a big opportunity to benefit our faculty member and also our students, because we got a scholarship, but from the European Union. I mean the grant is from European Union University, then to sign the agreement, then to help our student or our faculty member, in spite of it's a short term, maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 semester, 1 year, but always favorable. So that's I think the new discovery for us to work. And besides, maybe in the university, people never thought about we should do something like a business. The Office of International Affairs is just a kind of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because you must negotiate, you must self-promote, let people know you. And sometimes you must sell your program. For example, many international students come to Taiwan for short term, or maybe for degree study, or maybe for Chinese learning. Nowadays there are a lot of people who would like to learn Chinese. So we should give them the big program, the good program we design, and to offer the best conditions. Then attract them to come to Taiwan, because some of them, or many of them, would like to go to mainland China. But that's not, it's a good competition, because I always tell to our international students, we would like you to go either to China or to Taiwan. Then what's the difference, or who will be your true love. After that, many international students decided to stay in Taiwan. And later on, after I stepped down in 2019, because after 5 years and a half again, the president of National Tsinghua University, He Chenhong, also I appreciate of his invitation. He would like me to do something related to the Spanish-speaking university, because the National Tsinghua University 4 years ago, they combined with the National University of Education. So now it's a comprehensive university. And over the past 2.5 years, during my stay in National Tsinghua University, I engaged myself to concentrate all Spanish study country and the university. But unfortunately, the pandemic, every university suffered a lot. The pandemic and the international affair almost stopped. But I would like to emphasize that the internationalization is not only study abroad, go abroad, but also locally internationalized. So we try to invite Spanish-speaking people, embassy, office director, and then to create events. Let our students have opportunity to get into with the Spanish culture and the Spanish events, and working together with other European language as well. For example, German, French. And I think I have done a lot of things during these 2 years and a half at National Tsinghua University. And I think everyone who have this opportunity, I encourage you to accept this kind of the administrator, because it's a big challenge for professor especially, because being a professor, you always teach, students listen. But being a vice president for international affairs, you must listen, or sometimes you must require others and to negotiate. And that's also a kind of tragedy. Sometimes you must accept maybe depreciation as well. When you say, I'm from this university, we would like to work with you, maybe they are not interested in. So you must know the difference, and then to approach what you want to do. And I think we did get a very good result and outcome. And I think now the new team also is doing well in spite of the pandemic. That's my experience. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Association Taiwanista de Hispanista. Why now? Why was it a need, or why is there a need in 2021 for an organization bringing together Spanish language educators in Taiwan?
Well, I would like to say also another accident. My life is full of accident, but surprise. The recent factor was the workshop I hosted last year in National Tsinghua University. I invited a lot of teachers who are teaching Spanish in high school. And at the time, I also invited a lot of professors from university to moderate. And after the whole day long discussion and exchange, actually, I would like to say the professors from university, we were astonished, surprised, and touched by the younger generation. They are so enthusiastic, passionate, energetic, and a new way, innovative. So at that time, some professor will say, it's time. Actually, it was time. 35 years ago, professors started to talk, we should have an association of Hispanists to work with. But, it's always easier said than done. And after so many years, and after I left Free Catholic University, I was always think about that it must be someone from the Department of Spanish to lead, to guide such an association. But after 20 years, this year, from 2001 until today, it has been 20 years my teaching in National Taiwan University and 2.5 years in National Tsinghua University. I don't see great difference. So I decided to organize such organization. And I think maybe it's the right time, though a little bit late, yet it still have time, never too late to do something. So immediately I invite members from different universities, mainly 5. I mean, now in Taiwan there are only 5 universities, to invite members. According to the local procedure, we need at least 30 members. And in 5 days, we got the founding member. So, but after 10 months, due to the pandemic, again, but in September 25, because it must be the substantial, the presence in there. So in National Taiwan University, we host the General Assembly and to build this association. And I'm very grateful to all the members because they are very supportive, especially the younger generation. I think they need more support and more resources.
Can you give us a rough idea at the university level and the high school level, how many full-time Spanish language teachers are there in Taiwan? Roughly.
Roughly full-time in university?
And high schools combined.
High school, actually very few. To my knowledge, I wonder if there are 5. Because, in high school, they prefer to hire a professor part-time. And one professor can teach different high school. And besides, the second foreign language, even the Ministry of Education has launched it since 25 years ago. It's optional, 2 hours. The student may take it as kind of entertainment. And the university, for example, every department depends on the student they have. One group, if they have 60 students, maybe 10. Then if they have 2 groups, 18. In the case of National Taiwan University, we are 5. That's quite many professors. And until now, I see maybe only National Taiwan University, National Tsinghua University, and some private university has the faculty member to have a second foreign language. So it's quite sad that the teacher of a high school, they should get around from one place to another, from one high school to another. And this, I think we need of government a good policy to establish well education for second foreign language. Now, many students study Spanish, French, German in high school, but when they come into the university, we started from the zero. We started to teach the ABC, ABC. So I think this organization is also want to build a good connection between teachers in high school and the professor in university to build a new program. How to build a good bridge to bridging the students, then we can have more impact. And
what are some of the events that you plan to hold to do that?
Actually, this association will focus, parallelly in teaching and in academic. You might know or might not know nowadays, professor of university, we are facing a big pressure. We must be a good professor. We must do service. We must promotion, publication, research paper. So we want to exchange and to gather research resources among university professors. On the other hand, we would like to, just what I mentioned, to support the teacher of high school, give them some resources, and we also can learn from them since they use a lot of online teaching, distance learning, or flash some kind of innovative courses. So this will be the teaching way, and we would like to host a workshop every month. Until now, we have arranged a series of workshops online every Friday, the last month, to teach. And we invite our member, of course, to share the experience, to share some new information. And we also have our homepage. We invite a member to write some articles. That will be easy way to share the Hispanic culture.
I hope those articles are written in Spanish, not Chinese.
No, in Spanish and in Chinese. Today we just published 2 in order to celebrate the National Day of Spain. It was October 12th, one in Spanish, another in Chinese. Another goal of this association is that we always want our member to use at least both language, Spanish and Chinese. Our official language is Chinese. We should use it. Then we are members of a Spanish association. So we will encourage our member to write in Spanish. So these 2 languages will be flexible, compulsory. Then if someone would like to write in English, I will give them the suggestion. Would you please write in Chinese or in Spanish to help them? Well, English is always acceptable, but since we want to encourage our member to do more on these 2 languages.
You mentioned a few minutes ago the enthusiasm you see with younger people, the younger Spanish language instructors. But what about the students? So as educators of the Spanish language, what do you see as some of the challenges younger people in Taiwan have when they want to learn another foreign language, other than English? What are the challenges they face today?
I think the younger generation now are quite practical, and they will see the purpose. But since the younger generation is also very internationalized, more open, they know that in addition to English, if they can learn another second foreign language, then maybe their future will be wider. Or maybe some students just look for a student exchange. They would like to spend 1 year, 1 semester outside. But other reason would be the neighborhood. Japanese is the leading place of the second foreign language. Now Korean as well. It's in our neighbor, and the culture, the music, the popular culture, has great impact. Then another European language, I would like to say the 3 major, German, French, Spanish are always the main European languages. But now we are also open another language. And I think the government policy will be also very influential factor. For example, since 2016, our government launched the southbound policy. Now there are a lot of students studying Vietnamese, Thai, Indonesia, some language from the southbound country. So I think the policy, then the student will see whether they will use this language, either for travel, for tourism, or for finding job. So a lot of, but since I think it's a trend, or including it's a fashion, that the student need to study another language, or sometimes they just try to say, in addition to English and Chinese, I also can speak another second foreign language. And I think it's good because when I was studying in Spain, at that time, 30 years ago, European Union started to encourage their citizens to dominate 3 languages. So I always say that it's a good future for the younger generation. And now since the university, if the university allow teacher or a higher teacher to open this kind of courses, there will be always students to learn, including Latin. You see, Latin.
Yeah, Latin is not dead. It's still useful, right?
Yeah, and in NTU, Tsinghua, and Furen, we have Latin courses. It's very important to trace back. Latin is the mother of Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian. Yeah, so it's quite useful and promising.
We're almost out of time, but very quickly, could you tell us a little bit about what you're researching, or what's the next thing you're going to publish about?
I just finished a translation of Portuguese, from Portuguese to Chinese, and I think by January will publish my newest translation, A Heart So White, a novel by Spanish academician. Actually, it's a retranslation, and some academic papers, of course. Now I have 3 papers under review on top international journal. I think 2 of them will be published soon. And now I'm working together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Embassy of Nicaragua, because this year is the 200 years of independence of Central America from Spain imperial Spanish colonization, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will give some grant for the embassy and me. We work together. Now I'm translating Nicaragua's famous poet, the most famous poet, Rubén Darío, and it is supposed to be published next year. So this is my recent publication. In terms of research, thanks to some professor of history and linguistics at National Tsinghua University, over the past 3 years, I was doing research related to manuscript dictionary in colonial time, in 17th centuries, to know how Spaniards, especially missionary, priests, learn Taiwanese. Learn dialect, not only Taiwanese, dialect of South China. In Manila, many Chinese did the commercial or business with European people, and how Chinese businessmen learn Spanish in order to do business with them. That's quite interesting. I admire their patience.
Certainly looking forward to those publications. Well, Professor, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
You've been listening to Residence Messenger on Taipei Broadcasting Station. Good night.